Everyone, it's Yvonne here to do the reading for Aries. Aries, thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Even better if you've subscribed, thank you for your support. I do have memberships available now underneath the screen, so if you're interested in joining as a member or supporting the channel, they're all there for you to have a look through. Before we go any further though, just a quick blurb as I always do. If you are an Aries sun sign, then it's good to check out what other planets were in your sign when you were born. You can do that by Googling a natal chart and having a look where your moon and other placements were when you were born. Cafe Astrology and a few others do have the option of printing up a natal chart. So you Google natal chart, put in the details of your birth, and then they will offer you a report. It's really good to upload the report, keep the report for yourself and have a look back at it at intervals. It's very interesting to see how close it is to you in personality. If you don't have your time of birth, you may not be able to get your ascendant. The ascendant sort of changes quite regularly on the day that you were born. I think every 2 hours it pretty much rolls over. So without your time of birth, it might be hard to get that rising. However, you can have someone look at that for you if you're really getting into it and you're interested in finding out more about that. All right, today we're going to use the Ethereal Tarot for your reading. And we'll have a look and see what's going on for you, Aries. While that's happening, I do have my website up and running again. I closed it down because I was trying to, well, I actually worked for a bit of time on and off, and it just sort of seemed that I wasn't getting a lot of traffic through the website. So I've started it back up again. I still want to do some changes, but for the time being, it's up for reading. So if you're interested in reading with me, you can go and have a look at the options, www.theaussiegoddess.com. I think it's good. Sometimes people say to me, what sort of readings do you provide? And I do provide a variety of readings, but sometimes I can sort of say to you, it would be better if you had this or that. But anyway, go and have a look. I mean, it's all good to have a look at anyway, but I'll leave you with that. Okay. All right, so interesting enough, we're starting off with the Eight of Pentacles. Now, the Eight of Pentacles for me is a job that talks about work. So it could be a work reading coming through for you, but sometimes it talks about us working on ourselves. You know, that is a sort of, once you start the work on yourself, it is a bit lifelong. It's a little bit like peeling onions, as I always say. And some people say to me sometimes, you know, it was good when I was in the dark and I didn't realize what was going on because I didn't have to worry. But once you open the door and start doing, you know, start evolving spiritually, it's very hard to close the door and go back again, because once your eyes are open, it's sort of like, well, that's it. It's hard to go back. So if you've been working really hard on yourself, doing some work around, you know, childhood trauma, emotional dysregulation, whatever it can be. Maybe you've had a relationship that's broken down and you wanted to understand your attachment style. Those sort of things we work on. We do meditation, we research, we try to understand things a lot more deeply, and the possibilities of, I don't like to say why because that takes us down the rabbit hole, but certainly that can be working on yourself. All right, we have the Well. There you go. The Well is a card that is additional in this deck. There are two cards. I think it's the Well and the Artist are the two cards in this deck that are not the same as a normal tarot deck. The Well card for me is a card that talks about like having such a great depth of things, or getting into the depth of things. And it would be quite interesting. Have I got the box there? Let's just see what they say about the Well. Because for me, when I look at that and I've got the work you're doing and then I've got the Well, and I've opened straight up on the Well, it's the birthplace of ideas, inspiration and transformation. All things are birthed from this creative, so knowledge flows freely to those who seek it. So I'm feeling here, this is quite interesting, that if you've been doing work on yourself or doing something or learning about yourself, you know, somewhat, maybe you're getting or growing a deeper understanding of who you are. This is sort of how we start to really see ourselves as the person we were meant to be. But sometimes we have, through our ego, sort of accumulated a lot of stuff along the way. You know, I was talking to somebody the other day about a soul retrieval, because you know, very often as we go through life, we have a lot of relationships with people. Some relationships don't break down. But every time we have an experience, every time we fall in love, every time we have somebody that we invest time and energy in, we give away a little bit of ourselves. And sometimes we can feel quite empty. It's a little bit about working on your empathy too, to understand where your boundaries are, that you don't keep giving of yourself emotionally. But whichever way it is, I feel like with the world, maybe you're understanding that's what it is. You're digging deep here. Look at this, looking for your truth. So for me, the Ace of Swords is a very powerful card. It's always been my favorite card in the tarot deck because it does talk about us aligning with our truth, who we were meant to be. So when you're born into this world, you have obviously, you know, past DNA. You know, you may have some, if you believe in life before, or Akashic records. If you believe in any of those things, then you will understand that before you even come to the planet, some things are already imprinted in your genetics, DNA. They do know now that that is the case, obviously, because they can say, you know, look at your history, and past history and past genetics to see whether there were certain attributes that you've brought forward in this life. So if they can see the physical attributes, it says to me there's a lot more that we don't know yet. So if they say to you, you know, you've got this disposition for this particular body thing, then it's possibly going to have to come through. But you and I know that we don't always look like our parents. Sometimes we look like our grandparents or even an ancestor. So if we're carrying through the physical, why would we not carry through everything? So that's a bit deep for me. That's well deep. So when I see the Ace of Swords, I feel like there is something being shown to you here. We do have the Page of Cups. We have the Devil, which for me in this reading would represent the ego. And this to me is the two sides of ourselves. So we have our intuition, our inner knowing, who we are, what we can bring to the table, who we are at a great depth here. This is about finding yourself here. But the ego tends to be what we tend to sort of fall into. Now, the ego is a good thing. You know, people always talk about getting rid of the ego. You're never going to get rid of your ego. Your ego is protecting you. It's a good thing. It stops you from running in front of a bus in case you get hit. It stops you from, you know, hurting other people. There's a conscience there. The thing is, there is a lot of stuff in our ego that we do not need. So we might carry through, you know, things that have been said to us as a child, or carry through experiences. So for example, and I have a very good example for this, I met a woman the other day who had 3 sons and they were all terrified of spiders. And I thought that's really interesting. 3 children. She said she is absolutely terrified of spiders. Like she just goes to great lengths to make sure spiders aren't around. And you see all 3 kids have grown up with that. So all 3 men, fully grown men, terrified of spiders. And I thought it's so easy for us to be influenced through, you know, how we learn and our experiences, our schooling, our cultures, on things like that. So I feel like you're doing a lot of work on yourself and understanding the difference between your ego and your intuition or your natural self. So, and that can take a lot of work to sort of cast off a lot of that ego stuff that doesn't serve you. It's the ego that might tell you you're too short, too tall, too big, too little, you know, I don't like my feet because my feet are ugly, or I don't like my face because it's just not a nice face. Like those are things that our ego takes on, and they're very often imprinted on us from other people. All right, so we have the Page of Pentacles coming through with the 9 of Swords, the Moon card. Some of you here doing deep, deep, deep shadow work. I feel like here with the 9 of Swords, it may be that you're starting to learn about your own anxieties, your own fears. That Devil card can represent your fears. But it does look to me that you may be dealing with somebody here. So you may have been through a breakup in a relationship where you've been encouraged by spirit to go back and work on something here. And very often, for example, with twin flames, the relationship breakup is because of all these feelings of rejection and abandonment and attachment disorders. So if you're going through that, really learn up on those things. You will start to understand why you've had a twin flame come in. They mirror back to you what you need to heal. I do have Pisces energy coming through here. I do have a lot of anxiety and a lot of spiritual lowness. So something you've been through has really, I almost want to say, drained you. So you may have, Four of Swords, you need to do healing. Four of Cups and Nine of Wands. Very deep reading for you, Aries. Very deep reading around self-healing, really sort of getting down to the nuts and bolts of things. But the Nine of Wands says that you've gone through some sort of learning about a pattern. Maybe you've been through something for a few times. And I can tell you, I did this when I first learned about narcissism, because I kept meeting people, and I always say it was the same person with a different face. These people who drained me of everything I could give and left me, I've got to say, left me drained, but it was always me that left. But I never really took any, how would you say, I never really understood the lessons in it. I realise now, obviously I had a very disorganised attachment. I would run from things if they freaked me out. But when I eventually met my twin, I actually did the opposite for some reason. So it's quite interesting how we act out our childhood fears. And I feel like you've got a lot of healing to do here. You do have the Hierophant with the Two of Wands. So I feel like here, and the Knight of Wands coming through here. Let's just put another card on. I'll take one from the middle. All right, Justice. There you go, Karma. This is definitely feeling for me like you have gone through some sort of connection with somebody that's taken you on a karmic journey. And now you're finding your way back to yourself through that deep shadow healing. Your person could be a Libra, Taurus, Pisces, Cancer. They're the strongest energies coming through here. And if you've been through one of those situations and you've come out the other side, I feel that you've started to understand that's something that you need to heal. And sometimes the healing is, I don't want to say it's enforced upon us, but it sort of can be something we just start to recognize we need to work with. There's a lot of energy around anxiety here. Disappointment, loss, rejection coming through very, very strongly in the cards. So for me, it's very, very much about us understanding the journey and why we're here, but you may have got a big, big hit with this. 12:33 on the clock, look that up. All right, so have you working on something that is taking you very, very deep to find your truth? I feel like somehow or another you've got some sort of conflict here. I'm just going to take another card. Oh, beautiful. So the Seven of Cups is here, and sometimes the Seven of Cups can represent like illusion or delusion. It can mean that there's a lot of opportunity, but in this particular card, you're seeing through an illusion. And I feel like because of that, you're starting to understand your own fear. You're starting to understand who you are as a person. And I'm more than likely speaking to you whilst you're in that process. All right, let's get, if anybody's looking now, we're doing the reading for the sign of Aries there. Let's have a look and see what's coming through after that. All right. We're going to get a card from the Shaman's Dream Oracle. That was a pretty heavy reading here. We do have the card of the Wall coming through, which talks about obstacles. 6 and 56. Being inconvenienced by life, detours, non-action. There are moments in your life when you are so geared up, so sure you are on track with such drive and momentum that you are shocked and confused when you encounter a wall. This unpredictability occurs outside of your ability to plan, regardless of if you've done everything right in alignment with the divine. It's imperative that you change your attitude now. This temporary roadblock is not an obstacle to blast through. This is not an invitation to push harder, cancel other plans, or worry about who will win or lose. This is a stopping point to enable you to slow down and contemplate the part of the manifesting equation that you and everyone else forgets. So it's asking you to take the time don't force yourself through it. Really take the time to work through this. If it's you I'm speaking to and you've gone through a lot with the person, you may still be at the beginning stages of it where you're starting to try and understand why the relationship broke down. You will go through a grievance process where you will start to go through the stages of grief. You could be really starting to dig into your shadow at the moment. But whatever it is, I feel like you're in the process of that right now. So I will leave you with that. Thank you.